There's a thrift store down at the bottom of the mountain, which is on my way out of town as I go towards other parts of the area. And it's a benefit store for a local senior citizens center, and they only sell craft supplies and fabrics, all sorts of craft supplies, doll heads, yarn, sewing machines, elastic, sewing machine needles, fabric. It's really small, tightly packed, but real well organized. I bought a lot of stuff there. I bought a sewing machine there once, a refurbished one I loved. I still love, and I bought yarn there. And now that I'm getting back into sewing, I'm buying a fair amount of fabric there too. So I went there a few weeks ago with the intent of getting some fabric to make some children's little aprons and smocks. I've mentioned this before, and I'll be mentioning it again, I'm sure, a million times. I used to do craft fairs, and I really enjoyed them. And now that I'm in this new town for the last couple years and things are starting to come back after the pandemic, I thought maybe I'll just start creating things over the winter and then have a nice stockpile, and then go to some of these local farmers markets and craft fairs and start selling stuff to make a little money, and mainly to meet people and see different parts of the county. So I went in there with the intent of looking for some interesting fabrics to make little children's aprons and smocks out of. So the first fabric I saw had nothing to do with smocks or anything like that, aprons, but it was really cool. This Norman Rockwell paneled Boy Scout fabric. They're different pictures or paintings they had a long relationship, Norman Rockwell and the Boy Scouts, and so he did paintings for the Boy Scouts over decades. And so this fabric had different sorts of eras of paintings, of panels, and different tasks that the Boy Scouts do. So I thought that was really cool. And I have very fond memories of the Boy Scouts. None of us belonged to the Scouts, but everyone in my neighborhood belonged to the Scouts. And it just seemed like such an Americana thing to do when I was growing up. So I thought maybe somebody would be interested in this. So I was already looking for stuff to sell, and I hadn't even started yet. The next thing I saw was this cute little flower loom, $8.50. Has a bunch of different loom possibilities. I look for stuff like this because not just for craft fairs, but also for things for me to do with scrap yarn and stuff over the winter. I don't leave the house too much, and sometimes you can't leave the house, so it's nice to have a stockpile of things I can put on my lap with my electric lap blanket on and just fool with. So this was my most expensive thing there this time, with $8.50. But there's a bunch of different looms and different size looms, and I've seen some cool videos on YouTube how to make a bunch of different stuff on this. So that's being set aside for another month or two. After the Boy Scout fabric and the flower loom, neither of which I'd come for, I found some other cute fabric. This is a darling for a smock. All sorts of little school images on them, and it's doubled over, so there's enough basically for 2 small aprons. I also got this rocking horse fabric. I'm doing this Christmas project, I think, where I'm going to get some little teacups from the thrift store and tea bags and make some loaves and make little baskets instead of doing all this Christmas baking, which made me crazy last year. Truly made me crazy. So looking for some alternatives that aren't too labor intensive. And finally I got this fabric, tiny little people with American flags, kind of the American cross-section of our population. I just loved it, and I thought if I make little smocks or aprons out of denim, this would be such a cute little accent pocket. So I also saw some other fabric there that I thought would be good, but bigger sections. I found this great little cookie cutter fabric, and this sort of let it snow ice cream type fabric. It's kind of wintry without necessarily being Christmas. And then this really bright and happy country life fabric. Because the fabric is sold by weight, my total at the end was $14, most of it being for that little loom, which was $8.50. So I took my fabric home, and because I've been reselling for several years, I cannot control myself. I have to start checking things and seeing how much they're worth and seeing if I got a deal or if I can sell it. It's a terrible habit, but here I am. The Boy Scout fabric was very hard to trace. I found one person on eBay selling it for an exorbitant amount of money. And again, listing price isn't the same as selling price. And just because there's one doesn't mean that everyone's bought the rest of it because they thought it was so fabulous. So I didn't know really what to think about that. So I have listed it, but I haven't gotten any bites, some likes. I'm probably going to have to relist it, rebrand it from a different angle. I priced it maybe a little too high based on what that other guy had priced it for, which isn't necessarily the best way to go at it. But the first time I like to do that anyways. If somebody offers me lower, then I'm fine with that too. I just want to see what the market will bear. So when I'm trying to determine what a fabric is, where it came from, all the identifying information, on the side of the fabric, the long side, there's like a little woven, like a woven piece, tightly woven piece. And usually printed there, every so often, there is the name of the manufacturer, the name of the fabric, the content, and the colors used. It just runs down the side. Every once in a while, it'll come up a little piece and it'll run down the side. So I went ahead and I already saw on the Norman Rockwell one what was going on there. So I went and checked out the other fabrics I had purchased, the larger ones. So I'm going to be looking down at this right now as I explain it. The gingerbread cookie cutter was by Deanna Markham for Marcus Brothers, and that was 2 yards. I had measured it. The snow ice cream, also known as Let It Snow, was also by Deanna Markham for Marcus Brothers, and it was 31 inches, so a little bit short of a yard. And the bright, happy country fabric was Countryside by Nicole de Leon for Alexander Henry, 2002, and that was 1 yard. So I went ahead and started looking up comps for those, and once I saw what they were, I thought, well, I'm just going to sell them, see what happens. So this is actually what happened, is the cookie cutter fabric I netted. Netted means I you know, it's after the fees, after the taxes, it's what's in my pocket. I think the Countryside fabric, I actually offered free shipping for it because it was so small. So this is what I actually came home with. So the snow fabric I came home with, or I finished up with $9.28. The gingerbread fabric I came home with $9.20, and the country fabric $6.67. I sold all of them through Mercari, and they all sold within 2 weeks for a grand total of about $25. Now, mind you, I spent $14 all told, and $6 on the fabric, and I didn't even sell all the fabric because I didn't list all the fabric. So I think that was a pretty good return, don't you? I sold all 3 of those on Mercari, and that's been pretty much the best place for me for selling fabric. So I believe I sold 1 or 2 on Poshmark, and I may have sold 1 or 2 on some other platforms, including maybe Facebook Marketplace. I have to go back and research. For me, the key to it is fabric has to have a really nice pattern, really cute pattern. If you can get that information from the selvage, it's helpful. If it can be unwashed, you know, in the same state it was when it was bought off the bolt, you can get more money for the same thing. And I try to be very, very honest about every little glitch. Like this Let It Snow fabric had a couple of sections cut out, and I disclosed that and, you know, turned in a picture of it and, you know, measured what the length was with those pieces cut out, as opposed to the full length without the pieces cut out, because only some of the part was cut out. Now, I almost took a rotary cutter and just cut that whole end off that had the pieces cut out, but I'm a sewer, and sometimes every inch counts. If you have something in mind for the fabric, you can get around that little piece that's cut out, because every inch counts if you need it for a particular project. I also try to measure real carefully and show the whole thing as best I can. And again, any flaws indicate right away in the description. Again, keywords, who did it, what colors, what's depicted, how big the images are. As much information as possible, fabric content if that is possible. The only thing that hasn't sold so far is that darn Boy Scout fabric that got me started on all of this, still sitting there. So I think I'm just gonna rebrand that, or refix the price, relist it, find someplace else to list it, and see what happens. I don't mind so much. Fabric is easy. You just fold it up and it doesn't take up any room, so fine. But when I buy stuff, I do like to sort of turn it over fairly quickly. So that was my fabric buying and selling escapade. I have to go back now and actually buy fabric for actual aprons. If I can stay away from stuff that's very, very marketable, it's a problem. In a way, maybe not. It keeps the clutter out of my house. So anyway, that was my latest buy and sell. It all went very quickly, and if I do sell that, if and when I sell that Boy Scout fabric, I will put it on my community page with my final total. Thank you so much for watching.